Why, Barbara, did this very private person, which you are, write this?
Well, because my husband couldn't keep a job. No, because...
That's a good pat line on the book tour.
Right.
Now, why
You've been there.
Why did you write it?
Well, because I really didn't plan to write a book, but 3 publishers came to me at the White House after George lost and said, we would like to publish your book. I said, well, I don't have a book. And they said, well, it's a well-known fact that you have kept diaries. And then they offered me a sum I couldn't say no to. I'm going to tell you the honest truth.
That kind of offer.
That kind of offer. It was very nice. And Larry, it turned out to be absolutely the best thing that could have happened to me. I loved writing it.
Why?
Well, because I always knew that I was lucky and that life had been good to me, but I really remembered again how really good it had been.
Because some people, when they face the catharsis of a book, and in order for a book to be successful, it has to be honest, have a difficult time letting it out.
I loved writing the book. And let me just give you an example. I told George this on the phone this morning, or last night before I went to bed, he called. I awakened Monday morning in New York City, having said goodbye to George Bush, and I looked and the airplane went into the White House, and a lot of things happened. The Pope, Arafat met with Rabin. A lot of things happened. And I sat and watched the news. Darling Jessica Tandy died, and Hume Cronyn. I thought about Cronin, and I thought, you know, I knew every single person or place that was on that television set thanks to George Bush, with the exception of Arafat, and George did meet him this year, but every other person knew me and I knew them.
Quite a life.
That's an amazing life. I knew it from writing the book, but I told George, I said, it really struck me how really great a life you've given me.
But also from looking at the book, aspects of it Barbara Bush didn't like.
Of course. Nobody likes a child to die or losing an election. Nobody likes, you know, the ugly parts of politics.
Did you like the public life?
Sure.
You did?
I loved people. I really loved living in the White House, but I don't miss it at all. I miss the people.
That.
Well, I miss the people.
Don't you miss what you love?
No. No, because I got more. We're having the best time you've ever known.
Well, you've never looked better, and George has never looked better.
He looks terrific.
Unbelievable. What was the least thing about the White House you liked? Whereas, if you didn't have to put up with it again, fine. What did you like?
That'd be very hard for me to say. I'm not a negative person. I loved the White House. I loved the people who worked there. I loved the life. I loved the fact that every day you could get up and do something that helped other people. But the marvelous part is that does not stop after you leave the White House. It turns out that George and I are both serving on hospital boards, and we can raise money, and we're working for AmeriCares. We're going to go off at the end of this tour to Central America country and take food and
Where
supplies.
Are you going? Go all over the region?
No, just to a Central American country. Don't ask me because I'm a little tired tonight. I've forgotten.
What about the isolation of the White House? There is an isolation.
No, because I had great friends. I will say, though, if you have a friend in the White House, for heaven's sakes, call her or him. People don't call you, but I had, you know, Andy Stewart and Phyllis Draper. And
in other words, people think she's
she's too busy to talk. And I had wonderful daughters and sons who lived here, who came by pretty regularly. And
all right, how do you feel about 2 sons in politics, both running for governor of 2 huge states?
I think we're just, the country's lucky to have them. They're the 2 best qualified, finest young men you've ever known.
Were you surprised at either one of them entering the political ring?
Not really, because they've worked so hard in their communities and in their parties for years. Both of them are pretty successful businessmen and have very strong families. And I tell you, it touched both George and me, because you might have thought they'd have been turned off after the ugly 1992. They loved their father, and he adores them. And for them to get into politics, and if you're listening, you bad boys, you made your dad and mom very, very happy.
That's very nice.
That's true.
Do you feel this? Do you get this feel? Are you angry at Governor Richards and Governor Childs?
No.
Do you want to, you know, because I mean,
No, I want the best man to win, and we know who they are, don't we?
Do you think they're both going to win?
Yes. I'm very hopeful.
Are you
and
going
don't
around?
go by what I think, though.
I know.
I mean, others have told me. If you want to know the way to go. Don't go with me. I'm always wrong. But
do you go to fundraisers and the like for them?
If they ask me, I hate to say that out loud, but I'm ready.
Your son, Jeb, said that it was about 4 in the afternoon the day of the election. He told me that you knew you weren't going to win.
Our son George came and told us.
And you had a great line. You said, how do I make airport reservation? Or, no, how do I get a driver's license, right? You hadn't had to go apply for one.
I'm driving. You all watch out.
You're back on the road again.
I'm on the road again.
How painful was defeat?
'Cause
You've had defeat before.
Someone you love, well, that was painful too. I don't want to tell you that was easy, but if you adore your husband, that's hard. But George Bush would tell you that the minute we lost, and maybe a couple of days later, had started sort of mentally packing myself, and I was home by the time we got there. And people have been so nice to us. In Houston, Texas, are you a Texan?
No. Larry L. King is a
You ought to be lucky.
I'm a Brooklynite.
That's right. If you were lucky, you'd be from Texas. But I mean, our house was unpacked. The garden in the rented house was planted. There were yellow ribbons all over the city. People still act almost 2 years later like they're glad to see us.
Was the lame duck aspect those last few months in the White House tough?
Well, it was hard for... George was so busy still being president. We had Somalia and we had Saddam. No, because it was tough when I sat down and thought about it, but we had Christmas to get through, and I'm really not going to kid you. I loved everyone, from the maintenance man to the janitor to the plumbers to the florists to the ushers to the butlers, and then all the rest of them. I loved every one of those 93 people, and I think knew them.
All right, we're going to go to phone calls for Barbara Bush, and we start with Norfolk, Virginia. Hello.
Hello. Thank you, Mr. King, for such an honor and a privilege. You do a great job.
Thank you.
Mrs. Bush, I'm Don Wood from Norfolk, and I would just like to ask you, with the Haiti situation, what did President Bush go through when you had to make the decision to actually commit troops to the Persian Gulf? It must have been a tough decision.
Well, it was my husband's decision, and I went through it only with him because I made no decisions. I want you to know that.
What was it like to go through?
It was awful, terrible. George, having been to war, knows what it's like to send someone else's son or daughter to war. It was a very terrible time, but, you know, I very immodestly think that George Bush taught us how to keep the peace.
Before we take the next call, I forgot. Why don't you like the word popular?
Well, because I don't think it's true, and I don't know how to cope with it, and I just don't like it. And I don't want you to stand up and say, "Here comes the least popular
That's
woman."
right.
I mean, I just don't. It just makes me very uncomfortable.
New Canaan, Connecticut, with Barbara Bush. Hello.
Mrs. Bush, the nation owes you and the President a great debt of gratitude for years of service. However, I have a question for you. Do you believe that...
Hello?
Do I believe what?
We lost him, I think. To Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Hello.
Yes. Hi, Mr. Larry. I'm really delighted, and thank you for your effort.
Thank you.
Hi, Ms. Bush. Good afternoon. First of all, I would like to convey my deep regards to our brave friend, Mr. Bush.
Aren't you nice?
Secondly, I would like to ask you, what were your last thoughts while leaving the White House?
What were my last thoughts when I left the White House?
You look very sad in the picture.
Well, I wasn't very happy in a way, but I hope I was just remembering all those wonderful times. But we did love the people, and I haven't been back to see them, and I hope they know I love them.
Why not?
I just wasn't ready. George went back, but I'm just not ready.
You're not emotionally ready?
Well, no, I just, they're doing their thing, the new president, and they ought to do it. And they know I love them. If not, I'm telling you now.
But if Hillary called and said, please come for...
They did ask us for the night, which was very thoughtful during the NAFTA signing time, and George went, and he enjoyed it immensely, so they were very hospitable. I just wasn't ready.
Are you ready now?
No.
How did you emotionally deal during that short period of time when there were all those stories in tabloids about infidelity?
Well, how can you
I mean, emotionally, how do you deal with something like that?
Well, I had no problem. It never happened.
None at all.
Nobody ever accused George Bush of anything. Rumors, ugly rumors, political. I had no problem. George and I talked about it, and we said, isn't it sick how people do something like this?
The job of his, it appears, that you liked the least was CIA.
Well, that's because I can't keep a secret. I'm going to tell you the honest truth. And I mean, we discussed it, and we both know I can't keep a secret.
So he didn't tell you?
I asked him not to tell me, but he did share with me. But, you know, you're talking about the depression I had.
Yeah.
I really, it was stupid of me, Larry. I'm glad now
What do you mean stupid? You can't control it.
No, but I could have gotten help. But I was too sort of proud to get help. And when George, he was the only person I told. I didn't tell Andy Stewart, my closest friend in the world. I didn't tell anybody.
What's
my
depression
sister,
like?
Awful. It's painful, and it really physically hurts.
It's been described that no news is good news, that nothing can please you when you're in it.
Well, it wasn't maybe quite that bad. I mean, I faked beautifully.
Oh, hey.
I mean, I faked through it.
Mike Wallace worked every day of it.
Did he?
Yeah,
Well,
every day.
God bless
went to
him,
work.
because it's just a terrible thing to have. And you
How did you lick it?
I don't know. But George just held me. And he would suggest, you know, why don't you go to a doctor? And then I'd think, he thinks I'm crazy. And I only cried at night when I could just keep him awake. And I mean, it was terrible. But having said that, I was the right age, menopause. My children were gone for the first time. It was a job I couldn't share, and we'd had such fun in China and the UN, and I loved all that being part of his life, and the Republican National Committee. And all of a sudden, all that sort of, but it was really the physical thing. And a doctor could have helped me, and I was too stupid to go.
And drugs could have helped.
Yes. But I just didn't want to tell anyone. I mean, I was ashamed of it. My code was, you think about other people, stop thinking about you. Obviously, you're thinking about yourself. That just isn't true. I mean, I worked hard at the Washington home every day. I gave slide programs of China. George took me abroad with him on trips. I did a lot of things.
But inside?
I just hurt. But I'm over it. I was sad to read in the USA Today, though, that it recurs to people. And I said, not me, big boy.
Oceanside, California. Hello.
Hello, Mrs. Bush, and hello also from Davis, Oklahoma.
Oh, good.
I've got, you often say that you had two choices in life, that you could like what you're doing or dislike it, and you always chose to like it. What gave you the insight and strength to really live by that? Because it has inspired me.
Is your name Casey?
It is.
I love you, Casey.
Wait a minute, who is this?
She was my aide for years, and she's right. I had two choices in life. You can like what you do or not.
Casey, when did you work for Barbara?
I was with her 1987, 88, and part of 89.
You're a good girl. How's the baby?
He's wonderful, thank you.
Oh, I'm so glad. How's Hugh?
Great, also.
Now, when you say Casey, an inspiration in what way?
That it's true. I mean, she truly taught me that you do have two choices, and you can like it or you can dislike it, and if you like it, you're going to make everybody else a lot happier, too, as well as yourself. And I just have always wondered where she got that. I got it from her.
All right, she got it from you. Where did you get it from?
I don't know, but it's sure true. Like what you do. I love you.
Oh, beautiful.
She traveled with me she traveled with me 3 years. I recognize that beautiful.
Oh, you
and
got it right
Davis,
away.
Oklahoma got me.
Lawton, Oklahoma. Hello.
Good evening. Mrs. Bush, it is such a privilege to talk to you. I wondered, you and your husband have lived such an exciting life and gone everywhere and met everyone. Is there anything you never had a chance to do that now you'd like to do?
Good question.
That's a good question. And, well, I used to think I wanted to go down the Rhine, over the wine country in France on a barge with bicycles, but with all my family. I think I better hurry if I'm still going to be able to ride the bike. But no, the truth is,
You've done everything you wanted to do.
yeah, but I'm still willing to keep trying. I broke 100 in golf last summer and again this summer, and I want to now get down better in it. So I like.
By the way,
there are a lot
election
to do.
night, are you going to be in Florida or Texas?
I'm going to be in Houston, Texas with George Bush.
On the phone to Jeb.
On the phone to Jeb and on the phone to George in Dallas. I'm not going to be with either boy.
Either one, but you'll be in Texas.
Unless you boys call and ask me to be there.
By the way, what if they both call?
George will go to one and I'll go to the other.
I bet that happens.
I bet it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
Well, I don't know.
But why do
I've kept the day open.
Why do you call your husband by his full name?
Now that is the darndest thing. I've been asked that all week. That's to differentiate between George Jones and George Smith.
Fitchburg, Massachusetts. Hello.
Hi, Larry.
Hi.
Hi, Mrs. Bush.
Hi.
I got 2 questions. One's a small one. How's Millie? And would you think... That's good. And would you ever think about running for public office?
No. I'm 69, number one, and number two, I'm not qualified, but would you vote for me?
I think you would. What about, we have a couple minutes left, campaigning. Do you like or dislike it?
Some days I loved it, and some days I hated it. Sometimes I was so tired, as is every candidate and wife, that I just thought, I can't move. The hotel windows don't open, and the motels have hard beds, and they all smell like cigarette smoke. Some days you're in the most beautiful places in the world.
And the same is true of the candidate.
Yes, definitely the candidate.
Orlando, Florida, hello.
Hi, good evening, Mrs. Bush. We love you very much. We're excited about your son's hopeful his gubernatorial election this year. Most importantly, how's Millie?
Millie is great, and I loved what you said about Jeb. Thank you.
When you get back to private life, what's been the toughest part? The toughest adjustment?
This is honestly true, and it sounds a little bit selfish, but it never occurred to me that I could never walk down the street again. I always loved walking in Kennebunkport, down the Ocean Drive to downtown and back. It was a good exercise, and I loved doing it. People drive off the road now. They ask you...
You go shopping with George, though, right? You go to Sam's.
Well, we race. He stops and signs autographs, and I race through and shop. But he's
no
much more
life,
generous
right?
than I am.
Do you miss you driving sedans with Supreme Court?
No, I
returns?
drive. I drive.
You drive?
Uh-huh.
The Supreme Court in front of you? I mean the Supreme Court. Secret Service in front of you and behind you?
No, I just drive.
Barbara, you know.
Watch out for me on the road.
She's
That's what
on the
George
road.
says. Watch out, she's on
Be
the road.
careful, folks. How long is this book tour you're on?
We'll be through about the 28th or 9th. I'm going to end in Florida and then fly back to Maine and then go off with George to Central America.
That's when, next year?
No, the 1st of October.
And then you'll be back in time for the elections?
Oh, no, I'll be back 2 days later to speak in Baton Rouge. I'll be there.
And then, if the boys invite, you're on the way.
You bet.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thanks a lot.
Great
I love
seeing
being
you.
on the program.
Great having you with us.
I'll even come again.
Anytime. First time she came here, I don't want to be here.